Well, happy Friday afternoon to both you, Scott Baker, and you, Barbara Desky. Welcome.
Hi, happy Friday.
It is indeed 3 o'clock here, and we are up to field note number 1625. Thanks to all of you coming in here for Lead Better. We're going to talk about the field note of the day, and the title is The Triangle of Critique. I'm going to try to do that a little more dramatically.
Yeah, you got to make it sound
The
like
triangle.
airplanes are getting lost in here, right?
The Triangle of Critique. It sounds like it's like not quite, but almost like one of those sort of thriller novels, you would see, because they always have words like that.
Yes.
It would be the triangle of deception or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure this is quite that exciting, but it actually is interesting. And there's so many admired leadership things that kind of come into this one that I'm kind of excited to see where you take it. Barbara, what was, is there I'm sure you as a coach have done this kind of critique, but where have there been areas in your life where you've undergone this in a helpful way, where somebody has said, we're going to pick you apart piece by piece and put it all into context?
I was thinking about this reading the field note this morning. I can't think of a chapter in my professional career and really even my growing up in life where the critique wasn't the thing that sort of got me to stop obsessing about stuff that didn't matter and focusing on the things that actually were going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Because so if you talk about the triangle of critique, I think of criticism as like a hot poker. Like it just sort of like gets you and often rattles around in your head, but it doesn't tell you what to change. It just tells you not to do something, which leaves you with a universe of possibility of what you could do.
Very, very right. And by the way, that's a really important thing that you're just pointing out here right at the start, which is critique, when we're talking about how we would critique something, is different than how we would criticize it or how we would even give feedback about it, because those can be in different sort of categories. And Mikey, I know you've talked about that a lot, sort of the layers and levels of how those things are heard and responded to.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me is if you don't have someone in your life, as Barbara alluded to, like in her past careers, where she had somebody who actually was that voice of critique,
Pivotally.
that you could take criticism that is not meant as critique and doesn't follow what we're talking about here. And if you have the ability to turn criticism into critique for yourself, that's the kind of superpower that some people become very successful as a result. That even if they don't have that kind of leader in their life that we're describing this morning, that they kind of lead themselves through, well, I'm going to hear the criticism, I'm going to eject these parts of it, but I'm going to really let some of this sink in and make me better, right? So what I would rather have is a leader in my life who thought this through and actually provides this kind of critique for me on a regular basis.
It's a gift. I mean, this is the highest gift. And I know, Barbara, when you were saying that it was such a part of your personal development and your professional development, I'm sure, and maybe early on you were kind of like, okay, why are we doing this? But at some point you had to realize the thoughtfulness that would go into this and the potential impact for you really is underlining that word, a gift.
Yeah, I agree, Scott. For me, if I think of a particular example when I was in high school, well, actually even younger, I don't usually talk about myself as a coach and like what I've done.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't, but I think what's interesting to me is I was a pretty serious musician growing up.
I did not know
And early
that.
on, I got opportunities to be in master classes. So just like it would be like an elite athletics clinic, if you were learning how to play a particular sport or a dance collective. So the difference in dance, let's say, is that, you can get corrections, which are just raising your awareness. Like, hey, tuck your tummy in or lift your head a little higher. You can get feedback that says, and next time, a little more of this, a little less of that. And of course, we talk about that all the time. So it at least gives you an idea of where to go. But the difference with a master class is, first of all, it's intentional, right? The person who's teaching the master class says, there's something that I'm seeing among, the level of people who are going to be in the class, sort of where their skill sets are. And what I know people generally need more practice at or more discipline around, there's something I've got to be sure they take away. So they walk in with intention. They tell you when you're walking into the masterclass, back to my music, this is predominantly what we're going to work on. And then you work on sort of that core thing and maybe a few things around it. And then they go around the room and they're going to give you criticism in front of your peers. They're going to give you feedback. Hey, practice this piece a little bit more next time. And, Mikey, for you, you need to practice something a little different next time. But the key is you kind of know what the destination is. You understand what better looks like.
Yeah.
Because of the critique. And that to me is the precision that we're talking about. It's also the specificity that is part of the triangle. Like, you have to know where am I headed, right? and tell me the one or two things I can really work on to get me closer to that vision that you're holding for me as the teacher of the masterclass.
Well, the masterclass analysis of this episode of Lead Better so far is that I think we have failed by not fully defining the triangle at this point. And you just started to go in on it. But Mikey, do you want to outline the three pieces of the triangle?
Sure. Three elements that with critique make it especially insightful. So number one is that your critique is highly precise, right? The other one is that it focuses on actions. And the third, that the leader is accountable to the data. There's a lot of ways that you might interpret that, but
sure.
the way that I like to think of that last one is, I've given you some specific things. I want to come back at a later time and actually see, are you hitting those marks? So there's this accountability point in there where I'm an expert on this, and I want to make sure that we're holding up to that standard.
Yeah. But I do. First of all, I like the phrase "triangle of critique." I'll keep doing it. I wish I could do like an echo around a triangle of critique
every time it's said.
But I love the way that Barbara, you described it as a masterclass, and it might be a better sort of metaphor for us in terms of, like, if I say to you, "I'd like to engage you in a triangle of critique," I think I'm going to get a lot of resistance. Where I say, "Hey, let's do a masterclass on this," and you're like, "Okay, I'm all in."
Well, it also doesn't feel remedial.
Yes, right.
It doesn't
correct.
feel like I need you in a room with me for an hour to pick it apart, right? It feels more like there's a really sophisticated set of actions, and I want to model it for you. I want to show you examples. So I thought to myself, what would I do to get ready with the data, right? Like, because the thing is, you can look at somebody who's really talented, and if you've done it enough times and they're new to it, you know what they need to work on.
Yeah.
And so you could give them feedback in the moment, but maybe with a more sophisticated, skilled leader whom you're trying to develop, you might actually have to go back and think about, what data do I need? Is it something from my experience? Who else in the world have I seen who's the very best at this thing that I want to help this other colleague of mine get better at? Who's the very best? And what can I go collect? Because that helps them not only get it, grasp it, but it also can help, because sometimes really sophisticated, experienced people bristle at this a little bit.
Yeah.
So the data is actually potentially a defensive action on your part as the leader doing the developing, in case, sometimes we're not in the right mood. And that was the other thing I love about this field note, was the need to kind of pick your environment, to preview it, to like get somebody ready and get them in the mindset for this.
Yeah.
It can work for junior people, but really senior people need this too.
Yeah, you're going through all the reasons why lowering resistance is something that we should think about. And then these are the things that actually help us to lower that resistance. Yeah. We've talked in previous field notes about cause and effect feedback, right? So instead of going in being critical about a certain thing, you're just going in as a scientist. Hey, I've made some observations, and I've noticed that when these things are done, and that when you do this, that the effect of it is this on all these other people, right? So here's the cause, and here's the effect, and you just kind of leave it there as an observation. I think that what that does is it allows somebody to internalize the actual critique on their own. And I think that's what the data does here as well. When you make sure that it's both detailed, actionable, and data-driven, that data-driven piece is more about the idea of, like, I want to lower resistance to the idea that it's just me saying this. There's something else going on here, and I'm just going to put this out as a scientist, and maybe the feedback can kind of go on in your head on its own.
So, Mikey, I like that. I'd also say that for you as the leader, delivering the critique, the fact that you've taken the time not just to create the time and the space for this, but to prepare for it, should make it feel special, right? And I think we mentioned that in the field note, but the specialness of it has to be about saying this isn't just a one time. You know how you can give really good feedback after a particular meeting or an incident. This is much more about watching the development of the person that you're investing in.
Yeah.
And saying, boy, there's a pattern here. There's something a little different. And so I'm going to be careful about this.
Yes.
And so really try to support you. So
what a fun way to do this with data as well, because we've all been at the point where we're creating reports that are going to be passed up the chain. And when we create those reports, oftentimes we take something that maybe shouldn't be elevated, but it's a highlight because it makes us look good or it makes the proposal look good. And so we allow those statistics to kind of, pay ourselves a compliment as we're going through some of these things. If you're taking time to prepare this, right, and you're actually looking at the person's data for whatever reason, oftentimes it's the negative things that jump out. And if you intentionally are saying, like, why wouldn't I pull out some piece of data that they wouldn't know on their own, but I'm intentionally making them look good, right? That's the type of thing that you're not doing that for anybody else, right? No one else is looking at their stats and saying, did you know that you're the only one in the last 5 years to be able to do that, right? And commentators on TV do that for athletes all the time. Why wouldn't we do that when we're in this critique mode?
So you make a great point. Criticism has something of a negative valence on it, right? Critique, I don't think should. Critique can be amplifying or shining the mag light on something that you see your colleague doing really well in a particular situation, and you're looking at it and thinking, well, why don't they do that in 4 or 5 other situations? And why don't they become a role model for the rest of the team? It can be that kind of a thing too. And I think, for busy leaders, you can miss it. So I got curious about how would I do this, like in real life? How would the leaders I know who are so busy actually have the time to do this? Right? Is a different angle on it. So I started to think about it, and the masterclass concept is one way to batch it. You have to be very careful about, sort of peer level skill sets and those sorts of things. And you'd have to really manage it. But the other interesting thing that I realized looking back over coachees is that sometimes a leader has multiple people on the team who need to hear something similar to level up the team. You don't have to deliver the critique in a group, but you as a leader can prepare and find the data and find the models, and then adapt your style and the environment to each of the people who need to hear that. It just often happens that way.
You caused me to think about something because you, as someone who advises leaders, and actually, I don't think we've ever defined this for people sometimes, and I don't know how it is in all executive advisory firms. You might have been like, what was that word she said? When we say coachees, that is like the person we're coaching.
Yes,
right?
sorry.
So, we talk about that all the time, but then it just suddenly I was like, But you can imagine somebody that's in a C-suite in an organization, whether a for-profit, a nonprofit, the head of a school district, whatever it might be, and they probably have multiple competencies. But we do kind of want the person who's running our masterclass to really be world-class in that thing. And maybe part of the gift is a leader who sees an opportunity for development for you, and it's not them that gives the masterclass, but they have the knowledge to say, I thought that was exceptional, and I think that you can really be world-class. I'm not even sure that I know how to get you there, but this is the person I want to connect you with. So it might also be, there might be a behavior here in how leaders put together the master classes for their people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in any discipline, there are going to be times when you're the expert, and there are going to be times when you are the expert at identifying what needs to change. But again, you need models, and credible models or credible sources of data aren't always you.
Yep.
Right? And so great leaders park their ego when they're developing their people. They don't have to be the Zen master in every situation. They do have to be the source that says this is the right time to develop this person in this direction, and that will elevate performance. That's your job as the leader, is to identify the opportunity and what needs to change. And the triangle just helps you get specific and commit. I mean, the thing I love most about this field note is accountability. Even when you give feedback, you're making a suggestion or two, more of, less of. You're not necessarily committing to follow through with the person, and other than to sort of watch their performance over time.
Yeah, right.
With a critique, I think it's a much more relational approach, even than great feedback.
Yeah. And Mikey, I liked your emphasizing the cause and effect kind of a thing of like, well, let's look at this. And I've been to some master classes, not because I was a great musician, but I've watched that specificity. I do think that if a master had watched me play the piano or try Rachmaninoff, I think that what they would have done, they would have said, we've noticed that when you play, everyone leaves the room. What can we learn from this?
Right.
All right, we're out of time.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. Good to speak with you.
All right. Great to be with you.